us today a very, very distinguished personality, a professor of political science at the Brooklyn College, the sole author and editor of 7 books, including A Sap Democracy, The Political Economy of the Structural Adjustment Program, and the Political Transition in Nigeria, 1983 to 1993. She is the founder as well as editor of the peer-reviewed Nrikiredo, a journal of African migration. She co-founded and up till 2010 co-edited Gender.
Pastor, you are muted, sir.
You are muted.
And so on and so forth. She holds a PhD in political science from the Columbia University. Please welcome with me Professor Moju Baolu Okome. Professor Okome, you are most welcome. It's good to
Thank
see
you.
you. Which part of the world are you in right now?
I'm in Lagos.
You are in good old Lagos.
Yes, I am.
Excellent, excellent. That's good. But are you still with the Brooklyn College?
Oh, yes. It's summer. I usually come to Nigeria for research and to see my sisters and family.
Okay, okay. Jolly good, jolly good. So you are married to Okome.
Yes, yes.
Those are Warri Sapele people.
That's absolutely right.
Yeah. Okay, that's good. I used to know a Peace Okome. Any relative,
Yeah.
any relation?
She was my husband's first cousin.
Yeah. I grew up with Peace. And
Yeah.
and a bunch of others. Mr. Adenuga is part of that family, if I remember.
Yes.
And
Yes, she is.
Yes. Oh, wow. Interesting. Those are my people. They're real family with me.
Well,
Yes.
so I guess it's a small world.
It's a small world. It's a small world. It's a really small world. That's a bit of nostalgia there for me. Okay, right. We want to look at an agenda for Nigeria. We want to look at the economic development of Nigeria, the social development of Nigeria, the political and institutional development of Nigeria, and environmental sustainability, and so on and so forth. But maybe you can tell us a little bit more about yourself. How did you find yourself in Brooklyn College? How did you become a professor of political science? What drove you in that direction? And all these books that you have published, what is the motivation behind it? And our girls still have not been brought back. So what are we going to do? I don't know if that's too many questions.
Oh, no, not too many. I mean, if I forget some, please remind me. I've always wanted to study political science, but I started off as a history student at University of Ibadan. Then, I moved to political science because history at that time seemed to be boring and political science seemed to be more exciting. I've also always been interested in researching. So I wrote my undergraduate thesis on the transition from military rule to democratic politics in 1979. And, I was lucky to have very excellent professors. And also, well, I didn't want to leave Nigeria because I could have studied political science in Nigeria. But I got married and my husband needed to go outside Nigeria to study physical therapy on the master's and PhD level. So we went together and we went to Brooklyn and we haven't left. So we've been in Brooklyn for 43 years. So, you know, my whole advanced study was in pursuance of this need to study and understand politics, but I wanted to really understand Nigerian politics. And when I was young, I'm now going to be 66. When I was young, I thought I was doing so that I would contribute to transforming Nigerian politics. But I also wanted to understand so that I could teach politics. And, you know, the books, so my first area of research was to look at the interplay or relationship between politics and economic development. And I looked at Nigeria's transition, which I called it, people call it a dual transition, that was undertaken to move Nigeria more into capitalism and more into democratic politics from military rule. So that was my first area of research. And then now I have branched out and I look at globalization and how it affects Africa and Africans and African responses, including migration and setting up transnational communities, and then relationships between the old diaspora that was created as a result of slavery and the new diaspora created as a result of mostly economic desperation. The girls haven't been brought back, and it is heartbreaking for me. I still keep campaigning, and there are a few of us who are tenacious about this. It's one of the things that is indicative of state failure, because a state, one of the primary responsibilities of a state is to protect its citizens or the people within the boundaries that denote its national territory. And if a state is not able to do this, it is a weak state. And so Nigeria, in that respect, is a weak state because people should not be able to swoop down and snatch young people while in school. I went to boarding school in Nigeria, in Lagos, and I can't imagine, you know, the level of insecurity that we have now. But I went to school in the 1970s to secondary school while I was in boarding school. And, you know, now it's heartbreaking that many young people, especially in the zones that are more seriously affected, are scared to go to school. And you can't blame them. And parents are scared to send their children to school. And then the insecurity has spread beyond just school children to, you know, people just going about their ordinary business. Even in Lagos, I mean, people are kidnapped. So now we are saying that it's not just Boko Haram who are insurgents and terrorists, it's bandits, it's herdsmen, it's all kinds of, you know, people who can just, you know, apprehend people going about their normal business, and then their family and their friends have to gather money and rescue them. And I have contributed money to rescue friends, you know, so this for me is heartbreaking. It shouldn't be happening. And our government needs to pay more attention and solve this problem. I don't know what else I was. So why am I writing all these books? Well, I joke and say that I write what I like. Oh, I write what I like. And I joke and say I don't care who reads what I write, because when I'm dead, people will, you know, get more familiarized with what I'm writing and say, oh, Okome said this in 1980, whatever, or in 1998, or whenever it is that I wrote the book. But, I think it's important to what I believe is if you are blessed, you have to give back. So when I write books, I'm not writing so that I would make money. I get 2% royalty. I am writing so that I document, I analyze, and I leave something for posterity. And then my intent is to explain things that I see in ways that make sense to me, while also paying attention to what other people who are experts have said.
Excellent, excellent. That's good. So what do you think is the state of affairs in Nigeria? Where has Nigeria found itself? What are your main concerns? What are your main worries? If you have any anxieties at all about our great country, Nigeria.
I have tremendous anxiety because I think Nigeria has great potential, and everything that Nigeria needs to become a great nation, it has, and it has plentifully. We can see this in terms of the size of the natural resources we have and the value. We can also see it more when we have Nigerians who go outside the country, who become, stars in their respective fields. And when those people are in Nigeria, they're either underappreciated or somewhat frustrated because they are not given the resources and the environment that they need to thrive in order to do their best work. So we are wasting a lot of the potential that we have. And this is tragic. Now, that being said, so many people would say that Nigeria is a failed state. I don't quite say that. I think Nigeria is a very fragile state because I want to have hope that we can recover and do what we need to do to harness these resources, human, natural, imaginative, in order to become the great nation that we could be. So what am I hoping for? I'm hoping for a country where we are all given the environment, the circumstances, the resources, and the encouragement that we need in order to thrive. So as a professor, I see my colleagues who are teaching in Nigerian universities, the conditions under which they are teaching is very dismal. They're not paid well. The environment is not inspiring. It's seen as a crime if they go on strike. And they are punished. And then many people just get despondent, they despair. Some of them leave if they can. What kind of, and then if you look at what our legislators are paid and the perks that they get, you wonder what is going through the minds of those legislators. Because the essence of democracy is that these people were elected to represent us. In what way is their budgeting and their spending reflecting representation of the people? And when we are looking at the people, we have to think about the majority. Majority of Nigerians are not wealthy, they're not highly placed. And if we don't take care of that majority, we are all going to be uncomfortable. So if we want a good country, we need a well-functioning democratic system. a system where our institutions are strong enough to deal with the everyday challenges that we face as a people, then to plan and project some of what we were saying about, building in floodplains and things like that. We have to plan and project, match our resources to our aspirations, and ensure that we are meeting people's basic needs. I think, so I also make the argument that what we need is human security. Human security goes beyond just material security, where you are able to meet your basic needs every day. It's about also being able to live in human dignity. When I look at the slums in Lagos, for example, and I look at the statistics that are provided about Nigeria, that we have over 133 million multi-dimensionally poor people. How is it showing that we value people? How are we offering them dignity? People die of preventable diseases. And now with the with the economy in doldrums, we are having people also starving, This is not, and yet, if we get our act together, we can feed ourselves, maybe even feed West Africa. So why are we acting like confused people? I think the people that we elected, or they snatched the positions because some of them were not elected, they just rigged themselves in. We are allowing them to be too complacent. We are not making sufficient demands on them. And we haven't been functioning as if we understand what democracy is about. It's not just about us going to vote. Yes, voting is important, but we also have to be engaged citizens. In order to do that, we have to understand the system we're in. We have to also call these people to order. If they are not functioning well, if they're underperforming, I was really highly gratified a few years ago when people did recalls. I think it was mostly young people. We need to do more of that. I also was very happy to see the EndSARS protests. I know many people started saying, oh, the thugs took over and whatever. The protests started peacefully. Citizens of a democracy have the right to protest when things are going wrong. There's no reason why the police should be a predatory force against the people. But then if we don't pay the police enough, we're creating circumstances that would give them the incentive to be demanding bribes and doing a whole lot of the things that they're doing. Also, if we have institutions and we are a respectable democratic country, it is incumbent on us to make those institutions work well. We need all the things that people say, I didn't make them up: rule of law, transparency, independent judiciary. And then you see the legislators, they are just a disappointment because many of them don't seem to understand that people have reposed a lot of trust in them to help us to manage our common business, not to make themselves comfortable at our expense. And, from the presidency also, if you want to be the president of Nigeria, you can't afford to be relaxed because Nigeria is a big and complex country. You can't also afford to indulge in, whatever it is that pleases you. You are there to serve the people. That's your primary job. And so it is incumbent on us citizens to ensure that if people say they're there to represent us, they do this job. So this is what I mean when I say democracy is not a spectator sport. And individual action is insufficient. Group action is what we need. Group action to bring the concerns of the people to the government and ensure that the government does not sit there relaxed while the rest of us are suffering, or live extra large, like the children say, while majority of citizens cannot put food on the table, cannot educate their children, they don't have security and safety.
But how do we organize this group action that you've spoken about? You know, I think this really has been one of the challenges of Nigeria. A few recommendations as to what to be done and blah, and so on and so forth. What's really challenging as to who will do it and who will take it up and who will get it done and how we can get it done. So I want you to speak a little bit more into that.
Yeah.
What really can we do from practice? So I don't know.
Okay.
Through
You know,
and you've tried to work with politicians and all that, you know, and so I really want
okay. Part of what is needed, I think, is civic education. And people think that some government institution should be doing it. You know, in Nigeria, there's I forget their name.
NOA, National Orientation
Yeah,
Agency.
National Orientation Agency. No, I think it's a responsibility that belongs to all of us. So when I say let's organize with like-minded people, it's about civil society. But people also mistake that for NGO. Civil society is all of us. And, you know, associations that we might form in order to organize collective action. There are pressure groups that could form, and the ones that I see operating very well are the business people. So the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria is very powerful. The labor unions are, you know, well, I don't want to digress. They could do better, but they often drop the ball, but they also organize. I see what you have organized, these conversations, Pastor, as an important element of what needs to be done. Because from what I understand, what you do is bring people who would kind of lead conversation that everybody participates in to talk about some of the challenges and issues that are important to us Nigerians. So this is part of it, organizing to have discussions about our common business and issues that we find to be important. So organizing beyond that to say, okay, apart from discussing these issues, these are the things that we think are priorities. And then bringing those priorities to the attention of our elected representatives. I think because we've had so many years of military rule, and during those times, attempts to engage the government have tended to end violently. We are very timid because many people, when I say, you know, we can do this, we can do that, we can do the other, form a group, bring your attention to the government, they'll say, well, you know, what can we do? They won't listen, you know, and I think we assume that the reason why the governments in other places listen is because somehow maybe they are more sensible than us or they are more compassionate than us. It's because people are relentless. There are people who organize. I mean, let me give an example. The Equal Rights Amendment in the US is supposed to give women full equality on all, you know, in all terrains with men. And the Equal Rights Amendment has not passed for decades, okay? But people who think that the Equal Rights Amendment, women's rights organization, who think the Equal Rights Amendment should pass, they have not relented. They are not relaxed. They're still agitating for the amendment to be passed. So we need to be tenacious, and we need to understand that even if we don't succeed, you know, we should not give up. I said that I really admire the EndSARS protesters because these were young people who saw something wrong and they tried to figure out what needed to be done. They brought it to all our attention. Of course, they did not succeed in all respects. And then I think they were also a bit misguided because they thought that they were the only ones who had challenged government. My own argument is that if we forget history, we're going to replay the mistakes of the past. Actually, this kind of activism of challenging government and raising voices and protesting or demonstrating is a part of Nigerian history. From the nationalist era, when people were fighting for independence, through the post-independent era, and you see examples. I mean, when I was in university, we did Ali Must Go. We protested against, raising school fees. We didn't even know that the school fees would be this high now, and it is important. My point is important to organize and to realize that just because you are organized and you are bringing these issues to the fore does not mean that you are going to get everything you need or you are requesting all at once. But you must not give up. You must not get discouraged. Hope is the weapon of the powerless, because, and then one person or a few people are less effective. I mean, if we're talking about the ideals of democracy, than larger groups that are well organized. But it's not just about, so part of also what I see in Nigeria that is a problem for me is that we're not inclusive. Okay, Nigeria is a very male-dominant terrain. So you can see that in our National Assembly, that the percentage of women keeps declining. And I do think if we include women, and if we include them equitably, and if we include the youth equitably, plus we include the disabled community, people with disabilities, that we would have a richer democracy. I'm glad that there's organizing, but much of the organizing that happens is like NGOs. We need non-NGO type organizations that are concerned about economic and political and social issues and that work on them, So the way that people describe those kind of organizations is that they are epistemic, that they're communities of knowledge. The people who bring bills to, let's say, the US Congress, are sometimes just they're lay persons who have become expert in the particular areas that they see as important, whether it's the environment or education or gender rights or, the rights of differently abled people or racial equality. People get organized on the basis of shared interest, and then they work on becoming the best informed on those areas. So it's work. It's not something that we can do while sitting in our armchairs just pontificating. It's work. And then because you are working with other people, there's going to be differences of opinion. So discourse and argumentation and deliberation in order to refine the agenda. And then it's very hard to organize political action, peaceful political action, because sometimes egos get in the way, sometimes, different perspectives and so forth. And, you might have just a few people who are committed in the long run. That's also one of the challenges of building political movements. But I do think that as Nigerians, people of good conscience, we cannot relax when our country is like in tatters right now. Our country is in tatters. Like I said, we have a lot of potential, and that potential is not met. And a lot of our young people, justifiably, I think, they want to japa because there's nothing here for them. Some of them have graduated from university for a long time and they can't find employment. People say that they should become entrepreneurs. Who is going to buy from all these entrepreneurs when the economy is in the state that it is in? So we need to understand that in order to build a great nation, it has to be all hands on deck. And what interests me in terms of what I see as the top agenda might not interest other people. So find that area of interest. I think people should work on education, because our educational system used to be better than what it is now. I think people should work on infrastructure. We have very, very poor infrastructure, and we cannot develop if we have these bad roads, bad internet, and unaffordable transportation and things like that, and lack of safety. Some people need to work on maybe planning our cities. Lagos is a mess. It isn't planned, and we're going to suffer. We're suffering the consequences, but more consequences are coming because Lagos could go underwater in the near future. By 2050, only God knows how much of Lagos would be left, So we all need to get in, find something we're interested in and then focus on it with like-minded people. And then don't get discouraged because, like I said, there are going to be, argumentation, differences of opinion. Egos get in the way. We can't give up. We need a good constitution, and the way in which our constitution is being amended, I don't agree that that's the best way. What we have in Nigeria is elite-driven politics. The elites think that politics should be for their convenience, the political elites, but it should be for all the people. Yeah, Lagos was underwater yesterday. I heard that people were paying 200 naira to be carried on their back. Me, I hid in my flat. I didn't go out. So, we need to work on these issues, and each of us has to see ourselves as agents of change. That whatever it is may be difficult, but it is not impossible.
Well, I'm going to take you up on that because you might be in Brooklyn, but thank God for technology. We have people
I'm in
in
Lagos
the
now.
ALG platform. Yeah, in
I'm
Lagos.
in Lagos today.
Okay. How long are you in Lagos for?
Till
How long are you in
the
Lagos?
summer is over. Till the summer is over.
Okay, so
For a
I'm
couple
sure
of
we'll
months.
meet before
Yes, I'd love to.
shortly. Okay, that's good. Yeah, we must meet because we're really looking for a lot of people, good people, who will take on this challenge of Nigeria. What has happened is that most people tend to shy away from it or tend to focus a bit more on their own business and what concerns them and tend to pursue a middle of the road thing so that they don't get in harm's way. But unless we really have a group of people who are really sincere, who are ready to walk the road like you have described over time and help Nigeria, Nigeria is not going to receive any help. That's the truth. The political elite that you've spoken about, the political class, the system is working for them as it is now. So there's no way they are going to, from within themselves, change that system, except if some fluke happens or one of them really truly becomes born again in every aspect of the thing. So it's unlikely that they would change from within themselves. So the change must be pushed from outside on a consistent basis by a group of people who are a little bit above the fray and are not looking for political favors and are courageous enough to see the game go. So I'm hoping that you are one of those people and we'll be able to get a few things done. But let me ask you, if you were given an opportunity to be in government in Nigeria, what role would you like to play, and what are the things that you look at to cause some kind of change in Nigeria?
Okay. I don't have any interest in partisan politics. But I think I feel the most comfortable in civil society, organizing around issue areas that I consider to be important, and then pushing, putting pressure in order to ensure that those issues are addressed. Education is one thing for me, that the state of education in Nigeria is abysmal, and we really need to work. No country is going to develop if you neglect education. I say that education is as important as the military aspects of national security. So we need to revamp and overhaul our educational system. I also see this infrastructure issue. I mean, I don't want to be minister for anything. Infrastructure. Lack of infrastructure is an impediment to development. And it is inexcusable that we have the infrastructural decay that we have right now. Electricity and, ensuring that people have affordable access to it is important if we're going to have productivity for the business sector, and even for just being able to live as if we're in the 21st century. And we also need to, this insecurity issue, I think it's inexcusable too, that, as I said before, the essence of saying that we have a state with a government is that nobody should be stronger than the government. You are riding a train, they come, they swoop down, they take you for 100 and something days, they kill whomever they want to kill, they torture whomever they want to torture, they inflict all kinds of violence, children go to school, they're not safe. This is not excusable. We need to, so those are things that I would work on, but as a member of civil society, not as a politician who is elected. Okay, why don't I want to be a politician? I don't have the kind of money that it requires to be a politician in Nigeria. And I don't want to be beholden to some godfather that then tells me that I have to steal government money to repay them or give them contracts that they don't deserve. I'm sorry, my electricity went off. So I hope people can still hear me. Thank you, sir. So for me, Nigeria, I left Nigeria, but I study Nigeria as my country of focus. I also come back again and again and again. And in the US, when I tell people that I'm coming, the people in my church, they say, I'm praying for you. Why do you keep going to Nigeria? Actually, when I retire, I'm also coming back to Nigeria to settle. So for me, none of these inconveniences is serious enough to keep me away. And I do tell people, if all the Americans had left their country because of difficult times, when they were undergoing difficult times, because at one time in the 19th century, the US was a less developed country. If they'd all left, we wouldn't have the America that we all are running to now. So if Nigeria is going to be fixed, it's us who would fix it. And some of us are interested in formal politics. We want to be politicians. Some of us, for me, I want to be in civil society, organizing, also teaching, formally and informally, mentoring people, and engaging in activism and advocacy with like-minded people. That's what I'd like to do, not take any position.
Well, the truth really is that if people don't really get in there and we do more activism, a lot of our people in position right now, they're not interested. They're not listening. They didn't come here to take your ideas. They came there with their own ideas and what they wanted to achieve. And sometimes it's a little bit poles apart from the ideas that we have and the activism that we're doing. I think the only way we can really cause a change is to try and get in there or have an alternative, what I call an alternative development plan for Nigeria. That's the only way. That's the only way you can cause a change, you know, because most of these people.
Well, I think we can force them. I think we can force
I
them.
don't-
I don't think we have made enough effort to force them yet.
Tell me how you
because
how you think you are going to force them. Give me an idea. How do you think? Tell me.
Okay. So let me go back to when the military were in power. If one had said that it was possible for Babangida to say he was stepping aside at the time when he did, everybody would say, most people would say, no, it's simple. Organized. People were on the streets. Of course, there was also international assistance to the civil society organizations and activists that were agitating at the time. So if the government refuses to listen, the people can actually organize and make them. You know.
Okay.
But you think it's impossible. So we can do it, but it's work, sir. It's very much work. And it is work that takes more tenacity than we seem to be willing to entertain. Now, let me also hasten to say that I understand, you know, just putting food on the table and ensuring that one has what you need for your family is serious enough. And it consumes a lot of time and energy. I understand that. But if we don't do these other things, there won't be any, our lives are going to be impossible. So we owe it to ourselves. We also owe it to succeeding generations to ensure, I mean, just because we're doing all this work, like I said before, it's not going to provide instant, like abracadabra transformation. So as long as it's a democratic system, we have to be willing to have incremental change, you know. But to say that it's impossible, I don't believe so. Another we can do. Okay, so I said I don't want to be a politician. We can support good people. So if we find an honest, upright, you know, serious person, we can rally around and support such people. And then we can support them. We don't only support them to win, we support them as they are in office, you know, to ensure that, well, part of that support is we have to give them feedback, you know, that they can be there relaxed and using their wardrobe allowance and driving the SUVs and all that without doing our work. So ensuring that they're working is something that we have to take seriously as something that is possible, because if we don't do that, we're not going to have, you know, even small change, not to talk about transformation. And that takes the majority. Then it takes also, any movement has to have a core of committed people, because majority of people, they get tired, you know, but there has to be a core community that is dedicated, that is tenacious, that doesn't give up, and that remains hopeful that the change we want is possible.
That's very well spoken. I really like that. And we're going to look at that very, very seriously. And we're going to hope that we can tap on you to be part of that core group of people that will bring about that tenacity. I think that is largely what's been missing in Nigeria, to be honest, getting back to that core. You know, a lot of people who fought for democracy, who fought for human rights and all that, they really eventually just have the Ganifa Wehime, very, very brave people who were ready to lay down their lives, the Beko Ramson Kutis, even Fela himself, to be honest. Even our present president, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, was one of those fighters in those days. But now he seems to have settled a bit more into the political role. And those ideals seem to be less important now. I don't know, maybe it's the realism of our politics and the desire to win elections and have power. But a lot of the ideals are not working anymore. So aside from this, and I'm going to yield the floor now for people who have questions, and I'm going to ask Pastor Sonny to take over and Jumoke, my two VPs, in the Q&A section. Aside from this core group pressure coming at governments, trying to enforce them to do the right thing, is there any other thing, or is there any other way by which you think we Nigerians can somehow get Nigeria right, regardless and in spite of government?
Well, yes, I have also great admiration for people who have established businesses in Nigeria. Because, if we have businesses that are thriving, they would provide employment for people, and hopefully they would be paying decent wages so that, people who work can also have a good quality of life. So doing business in Nigeria is difficult because the cost of filling the infrastructure gaps is formidable. That's number one. Secondly, the cost of loans in Nigeria, getting loans. If you have a business loan and it's 20-something% or 30-something%, how are you going to make things work? So but we do need more businesses, and I think that there's a role too for government to play. I'm very sorry, I'm not very the people who were in the pro-democracy movement, some of them have become part of the oligarchic class in Nigeria's terrain now. They're wealthy, they are complacent, and their interest is to maintain the advantages that they have accumulated to themselves. I see the president as one of those kind of people. I'm sorry, So, but if you want to practice democracy, the kind of democracy that I see as important is participatory and deliberative democracy. Where the interest of the majority is what motivates those they have elected or those that push themselves into office to do what they're doing. And as far as we don't do that, we are wrong. It is not a democracy. Power, yes, power is intoxicating. Power, I've even heard the president say, power is not offered a la carte, you have to snatch it, things like that. That is not very democratic, So what is the interest of the majority? How are we serving it? What is it what aspirations do we have for Nigeria and its greatness? And if all of us are not focused on this, or a critical mass of us are not focused on this, we can't succeed. Now, if you make it impossible for business to succeed because they can't make things work, all the inputs are so expensive that, it encourages people to close businesses instead of having them open. If you make it impossible for young people to have opportunities for gainful employment, and there's a role for government, a serious role for government to play. We can't say that they should go and be entrepreneurs. Even in the US, there's a lot that the government does to ensure that there is something close to full employment. Every time unemployment gets high, everybody gets anxious. So how are we showing that we value our people? Like I said, human security is important. And that means the system we're in values us and wants our lives to be livable. So maybe I'm repeating myself, So, there's a role for business to play. There's a role for civil society to play. And I see civil society as beyond the NGOs, because NGOs they're part of civil society, but they're not the entirety of it. I also think that civic education and, religious institutions can be part of this, to give people the kind of tools that they need to understand the system we're in and how to function within it as informed citizens. That is important. And then to inspire people. And I think also that the people who are doing well owe it to the rest of society to mentor others, to ensure that whatever knowledge we have, whatever skills we have, we pass it on, and ensure that we're nurturing the succeeding generations and peers, who are at the same level with us. So, I think having empathy is also important. Having empathy, having hope, ensuring that people are educated about our system. This is the system, or this is what you do in order to get XYZ done. And then not giving up, keep working at it. Because you see, a lot of the systems we're looking at that seem to be doing better than us, they had to do this and they haven't even given up. People died in order to have racial equality or something approaching it in the US. People died in order to have the democracy that the UK had. I'm not saying we should all die, but we should realize that democracy is not a spectator sport. You're going to have to work at it. And that work is very hard because you don't see like transformative change happening instantly. It's long-term and it's consistent. So we need also to make sure that our institutions are functioning. The courts oftentimes don't work the way they're supposed to because, we don't have an independent judiciary quite yet. The courts are overburdened, all these things, like I said, each person, take your own area, whether it's judiciary and or the legislature that you want to focus on, and find other people and work at it and keep pushing, because it won't be instant, but you'll see what we put in, determine what we get out of it.
Okay. Any questions? Are there people raising up their hands for questions? Sonny, you have something to put in?
I see quite a few people.
You see quite a few people. All right,
Yes.
Sonny, can you take it up?
Okay. Thank you very much, Professor.
Yes, sir.
I wanted to take you up initially on your book, A Sapped Economy, but I will leave that until after these people have taken their questions, because I was wondering if you were to do an update to that book today, what you would put in it, but don't. Let me take the questions first, so that and the way we'll take it is I may take 2-3 questions. So are you able to note them down so that you don't forget?
Yes,
All
yes,
right.
I can.
And we'll try and keep the questions short and keep the responses short also, so that we can take as many people. So we have Yemisi Ransom Kuti. We have Electoral College, Nigeria, Afolabi Ajidahu. So I will take those 3, then I will come to Pastor Funke, Olatunde Olusesi, Charles O, and the other person is just D. I don't know, I can't see that. But let's start with Yemisi Ransom Kuti. unmute yourself and ask your question or make your contribution. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Moju Balu. How are you?
I'm fine.
I hope you told I joined a little bit late. I hope you told everybody about the Chibok girls and the type of organization that we had to do to keep it on the front burner, and how we were able to get the US House Assembly, or whatever they call themselves, to participate. And we're still, as you said, relentlessly pursuing that agenda. Let me just quickly ask my questions. First of all, I want to pick you up on the fact that you said that there are no loans for entrepreneurs. There are loans and grants like the LSCTF. The challenge is that a lot of our entrepreneurs, young entrepreneurs, don't have the capacity to access those loans. Either they don't understand it, or they don't have the information or the qualifications, blah, blah, blah. I think ALG and churches should really pick up on this to train young people on how to access the available funds that are out there. There are many, and I want to quickly mention that. Now, to your topic of today, I mean, you talked a lot about relentless tenacity. I think that's something that should be drummed into everybody's mind, that that's the only way we can get to where we want to get to. But you mentioned three, I think, important points for us to advocate: education, infrastructure, that is power, and security. My question is, I hope you will join. We are forming a coalition of the willing to create the change we want, and I hope you would join that coalition. But if you had to choose the number one agenda that we could all focus on as change agents, what would that number one thing? Because often if you have 10 things or 5 things that you want government to do, it gets diluted. If you were to pick the number one thing that we should focus on to create that chink in the wall that we have built, that would further enable other avenues to open up for the reform of the Nigerian agenda, what would that be? Could be something, not even the 3 that I mentioned. It could be constitutional reform, whatever. What would be your number one pick for us to focus on? Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma. I know that Khadija Okuno Lamidi, your hand was raised first, but you had dropped it. Are you ready to ask your question now? Maybe I can unmute you.
I am.
Okay, go ahead.
Good evening, everybody.
Yeah.
Thank you, Professor, for your submission. I've had time to really sit down and think about everything you've spoken about. I think all of us have at one point in time. But the tenacity part is the one that is most difficult, I would say, on all fronts. Now, I want to just make a suggestion, a contribution. I believe that the military era, which I was quite young then, but I believe the military era has left something way bigger than just the method or the type of government that we have in power. It has brought in oppressive leadership. And oppressive leadership, regardless of what form of government you are running, is endemic. And it's not something that you can wipe away as easily as possible. I believe maybe the first the government after after independence had a sense of equality. I think there were young men, everyone, the young women. There might have been some inequalities, but they were quite insignificant at that time because everyone saw themselves, it was a fresh slate. But once you have a takeover that is by force, you create that inequality gap that brings about this situation of, power cannot be taken, it has to be taken by compulsion. That compulsion or the revolutions that come with, like you were talking about being tenacious now. Okay, yes, you want us to drag it on and take it by, find a way to take it by force, but the process and the amount of energy put into it would definitely create, you'd give up some things. And that is what happens. By the time you do get the power, there's so many oppressive traits that you must pick up for you to actually get power successfully. That's one part that I wanted to talk about. Now, also, I want to speak about the infrastructural gaps that you spoke about. The infrastructural gaps are, I wouldn't say are only the failings of governments. I think they are social failings because the connection between governments and these infrastructural gaps are professionals. They're the missing link because they're the ones going to do the professional work. So if government we talk about government is all of us. Government is the 1,000 people in government plus an extra 2 million that know somebody who knows somebody. So at the end of the day, we're all government. Okay. So if the infrastructural gaps are there, it's because somebody has, the government issues contracts to professionals. They don't have what I call it, they don't have the capacity to do it. Okay. So, and professionals are also culpable. Then I wanted to talk about.
Can we limit it?
Yes,
there are so many hands up.
Yes. And then, sorry, okay, I think what I should talk about, the statement
just
revolutions.
Wrap up.
Yes, revolutions. I don't believe protests or revolutions can really solve the problem of progress and human development. So we're going to have to find a real solution, and I'm glad that we're still speaking about it. So thank you very much.
All right. Okay, thank you very much, Your Excellency. I know you contested the last time, you didn't get there. Just keep trying. That's the tenacity we are talking about, and I'm sure you'll get there at some other time. Can I please appeal to everybody to please keep your comments or questions to under a minute or at the most 90 seconds. There are so many hands. We would like to take them and so that the prof can have a shot at most of them, please. Electoral College, go ahead.
Good day, everyone. Thank you very much, Professor. My name is Kunle Lawal. First and foremost, thank you for everything you've said. I enjoyed the conversation very much. But I'd like to interface at some point. By hinging my conversation on civic education. But before we get to that, I would say that there's a narrative which tells people that people can't run for office, people can't participate in an election, people can't run for office because you need to be subservient to a godfather. Well, I'll say I don't think that's true. I believe my sister Khadija, who is here, and myself are living proof of that. I ran for Senate in Abuja in 2019, which was quite a great race, and I passed through party politics. The first thing I'm going to say is that we cannot engage a system that we do not understand. And herein lies the biggest problems in Nigeria. We mortgage our responsibilities as citizens. Most Nigerians will tell you the constitution is militarized. I don't even know where they got that idea from, because if you go into the origin of the 99 constitution, you find out that it wasn't even written by the military. Yes, maybe the military passed it, but since it's being practiced in a democracy, it has become a democratic constitution. Now, for civic education, the Electoral College Nigeria, which I work for, puts political illiteracy at about approximately 82%, which is massively high. And many people want to argue that education and political education are two separate things. I'll give you an example. Most people talk about constituency projects. Constituency projects are not even constitutional. And most Nigerians don't even know that. If we're talking about the participatory democracy, I would ask a question on this Zoom meeting. How many people are in a political party? You cannot not participate. Then when delegates make decisions for you, you have to pick So for me, I don't think we practice an election. We practice a selection, because these delegates who we do not know pick people for us, and then we have to pick between the devil and the blue sea. And that conversation has gone on in Nigeria. If we're talking about tenacity, yes, it's hard to find Nigerians sticking to the script and doing one particular thing and choosing to knock on one particular door. I don't believe we can solve any of Nigeria's problems if we do not get civic education right. Nigerians don't even think they're Nigerians. We look at ourselves as Yoruba, Fulani, Efik, Chief, Jukun, or whatever, Tarok, or whatever tribe we are first before we are Nigerian. That's the first problem. Then we need to understand how a system works. Now, how a system works is not basically what people have told us or activists have said to abuse the government. That's not how the system works. We need to understand how the system works and how a practicing democracy works. Like I said earlier, we cannot engage a system we do not understand. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Let me let the Prof take a bite at these comments and questions. But Prof, I will also appeal that you keep it brief so that we can take other comments and questions still. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Auntie Yemisi, thank you very much. I mentioned BBOG, but I didn't. Sometimes I have a problem tooting my own horn. I don't like to talk in glowing terms about things that I've accomplished. But Bring Back Our Girls did significant work to ensure that people pay attention to the fact that when our children are abducted, it is a serious problem, and that rescuing them should be a high priority. And we did that, not just in Nigeria, but in the US, with the Congress, with the United Nations. And, you know, there were people in other countries who did the same. You know, and I think that people also get it wrong and think that Bring Back Our Girls is only concerned about the Chibok girls. The Chibok girls are used as a touchstone to talk about all the people who are being abducted randomly in Nigeria and the lack of concern that we seem to have as a general population, because we seem to be more concerned when things happen, bad things happen in France, all the Nigerians will be crying. But when it happens here, we might even deny that it happens, or those people who are doing something about it is because they want something and all that kind of stuff. So I see Bring Back Our Girls as an example of what is possible and what we need to do. And like I said, pick an issue that you are concerned about and work on it and be relentless about it. Okay. So you know what? I have to keep talking about the US because I live there. I've lived there for 43 years. When the government has a scheme like a loan, do you know they also train people to inform them about how to access those loans? That is not just like they put out the loan and then you are at your own, left to your own devices. So look, if we say we want to operate a democracy and that we are concerned about economic development, these are things that government has to do. And people keep being impatient and say you are asking government to do everything. This is part of what they should be doing as a government in a modern democracy. So it's part of their job. And in the meantime, you know, there can also be organizations, civic organizations or religious organizations that are concerned about ensuring that people have equitable access to opportunities that make it known to young people, entrepreneurs, whether, you know, old or young, how to access these loans and grants. I also have to say that I know that there's a lot of corruption in our country. And sometimes a person might be entitled to something. If you don't give inducements, you might not be able to access it. By the time you give those inducements, you may not be able to have enough to perform the task or do the business for which you are getting the loan. But let me quickly move on. And so what do I consider to be the most important? Security. Insecurity is too much out of control. And it needs to be, we need to, if you don't have a secure country, even people who want to invest, external investors would not want to come, Now, forget about the external investors. What do we owe to ourselves as people who have value? We need to, the government not doing the security job well means that it is not, it's at least a fragile government. And it could be called even failed. Okay, my sister Khadija, tenacity is very difficult because being hopeful and keeping a struggle on is difficult under the most ideal situations. Yes, the military system. So some people actually, Fareed Zakaria said that when he looked at transitions from authoritarianism to democracy, he coined a term, illiberal democracies, not liberal, So and that what he's saying is that the authoritarian tendencies under the military or under a dictatorship continues into the transition. And it's very difficult to cleanse a system from those authoritarian tendencies. So oppressive leadership, yes, is part of the heritage, both from colonialism actually, and also from the military governments that we've had. And inequality, the fact that we have this huge number of multidimensionally poor Nigerians is a problem. We cannot, I don't think there'll be peace, actually, if we don't ensure that majority of us have what we need in order to meet our basic needs and also to live our lives in dignity. So infrastructural gaps is due to social feelings. I don't believe that. Okay, so this thing about we are all government. Yes, theoretically we are all government, but there are some people who said they want to run, or they are bureaucrats charged with the responsibility. To what extent are they dispatching these responsibilities in a responsible and ethical way? We have missed our road. So it's not just about the oppressive leadership, it's about the fact that we are content with mediocrity, that people have a job that they're being paid for, and they feel that if they don't get a bribe, they shouldn't do it, or they feel that doing the barest minimum is okay. We need to cleanse our system from this kind of way of thinking, because we were not always like this. We also, professionals are the missing link. Yeah, but if we keep the situation as is, when a professional is frustrated, unable to do their work, do not have the tools that they need, the jackpot syndrome will continue and will keep losing. We'll be investing in training people, and they'll be leaving to go to what they think are greener pastures, some of which are not necessarily immediately greener, because there's a lot of suffering that some people do in Jackpot also. So protests and revolutions can solve the problem. I think we have to make a difference between protest and revolution. I am not calling for people to be up in arms and throw those people out. That's why I said incrementalism is what we have to be contented with as long as we're running a democracy. When you protest, you are demonstrating, and it must be peaceful. And you can do it in a way, if you are consistent and a critical mass of the people are engaged, you can actually people forced military regimes to have elections. Unfortunately, the elections haven't produced the results that we want, but we can't give up. So I'm not calling for revolution, go and burn down things, go and kill people and whatever. I'm saying that, you know, peaceful protest is a part of democracy. And we need to use those tools. We can also do a whole lot more, putting pressure in many different ways. Kunle Lawal, yes, civic education is very important. I did say too that we don't understand, many of us don't understand the system we're in. And I'm glad you put a figure to it that we're 82% politically illiterate. So there's a lot of work to do to ensure that people understand the system. And then, you know, we are made more aware of what we can do to create the change that we want. Participatory democracy, how many of us belong to parties? I think you should also come up with the percentage. It would be very few. A bunch of people select, and I think this is part of liberal democracy everywhere. The wealthy tend to have too much of an influence over a system. I know there are exceptions to this rule, and I know that you know, there are people who are godfatherless and they can win election, but it is more difficult because there is this kind of banditry-driven system that we have allowed to thrive. But with more good people getting in, you know, it would be possible to incrementally change things. Now, what am I saying? I'm saying also, I said also that even if, let's say, I don't want to run for office, can I identify good people that I can support and encourage? And I give my modest donations. You know, a lot of small donations can also add up to ensure that a good person wins an election. But that good person has to be also very mindful of the responsibilities that they owe to the people that elected them. Many of our elected representatives are not. Okay, so I hope I've answered some of the questions.
Thank you very much, Prof. Let's get to Folabi Ajidaun, Pastor Funke Awolowo, and then I will take Olatunde Olusesi. Let's start with Afolabi.
Good evening, everybody. Professor, thank you very much. My own goes to INEC. The first word of INEC is independent. How can we get INEC to be truly, truly independent? Because so long as the president continues to be able to appoint the president, chairman of INEC, we cannot have an independent electoral commission. We're saying we want the right people, and you said it at the beginning of your summation, that a lot of people hijacked and were not elected, but hijacked themselves into elected offices. How can we get a truly independent INEC to now start getting the right people into the elected offices? And the second thing, yes, we've touched about it, but I want to also touch on it a lot more, is the drive and the backbone of any thriving economy is the middle class. And the middle class comes from small scale and medium-sized businesses. And medium-sized businesses, you can go to banks and get loans for 2%, 3%, 4% in the Western world. How can a business thrive in Nigeria when you don't even bother going to banks? Your banks are giving loans minimum at 25, 30, 28, 30% interest rates. How can we get this situation turned around till we start getting more and more small-scale, medium-sized businesses? Thank you very much.
much for keeping it to less than 3 minutes. Please, Pastor, let's try and make it shorter. Thank you, Pastor Funke Olowo. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, and thank you very much for that lovely submission. I'm going to talk about education, which is something you spoke about at length. There's a notion going on right now, a popular notion that education is actually a scam. And that's coming from the point of view that most of what we call education here in Africa, they're really foreign, and they're coming from America, US, and all that. And that's why over time, it appears that we cannot apply what appears so foreign. You know, Fela did sing about it, he said, democracy, not be crazy, why for Africa? That makes sense, you know, and I see that over time, we've abandoned everything that made us who we were or who we are today, and we have adopted foreignness, and that is a big problem. And you see, even when you look at the government system, you see people who have gone to school doing the wrong things. You know, somebody is a lawyer, they put him in the area of technology because I don't think we even take into cognizance the aspects of education. Number two, our present president, I was, you know, very much around him when we were in UK, when he was living there, and he was able to recruit most of the people that have abandoned themselves and, you know, saying they will live in UK. He brought them back, and most of them were quite effective. Now we're seeing a turning around, because what I want to explain is that, you know, he played his part, but it has gotten to a point whereby he is burnt out. And I don't know why he has remained in government, you know, and why there are people, even here, I can listen to one or two people saying that we're, you know, it's because we're educational, political illiterates, but that's not it. When a government is burnt out, we need, you know, to renew. And that brings the young, you know, thereby bringing the young into power. And, you know, basically that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we go to Olatunde Olusesi. Yeah.
Oh, yes, thank you so much, Mr. Enebi. I am very familiar with Professor Okume's work. We communicate almost every day. So I'm not surprised at all by all she had said today. And the work she does here in New York, phenomenal. Beyond about Africa, about Nigeria, it's phenomenal. Now, she mentioned something about Nigerians being multidimensional, a lot of Nigerians being multidimensionally poor, and also about building businesses in Nigeria as a way to help the people. And those are the two things I want to touch on. We, the elite, we can do much more. The elite can do much more. I actually see most of us, I mean, this kind of group as not doing enough to connect with the grassroots, to connect with those
American internet is not working.
Okay, so the problem is not with us alone, even in New York. All right, we are comforted. You know, that's what our legislators and government tell us all the time. When there's killing, attack, they will say it's not only here, it's all over the world. So let's take solace that it's all over the world. We hope he joins back, but before he comes, do you want to answer those?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead, ma'am.
Afolabi Ajidaun. INEC is broken. It's not fit for purpose. It is definitely not independent. But, you know, I think what the president does or should do is to nominate somebody, right? And then that person is put through the ringer. They're interviewed and there's a hearing on them by the legislature, Abi, because of checks and balances. I think it is not just a problem with INEC. It's a problem of the presidency, which as an institution, let's not personalize it, which as an institution wants to personalize power and ensure that they have somebody in INEC who is under their thumb, who will do their bidding. There's also the problem of the legislature. When I look at some of the hearings to confirm or refuse or reject candidates, it seems as if these people think that they're in a beer parlor. They're very lackadaisical. Majority of them don't ask any decent questions, and they're not really there to grill that person and to ensure that the person that is being picked is the right person for the job. So it's a failure all along the line. The legislature is failing, the presidency is failing, and us, the people, we leave it to them. They're doing those hearings. We don't even think that we should also be agitating and saying, we no go agree. Because if these people know that they can't get away with half the things they're doing, they will actually become more serious. But most of us leave it to them. Like I said, once we have voted, the ones of us who vote, we leave politics to the professional politicians. And we can't do that. Okay, so then it is also a matter of ethics and integrity for the people who are chosen to occupy those positions, that they lack ethical and moral fiber. And this is something that we have to work on to, either tamp down or stamp out. In our system, we can't afford. We live in a competitive international system where, like they say, the Americans, you snooze, you lose. We are falling asleep. We are so complacent, and we think that the world is going to wait for us while we get our act in order. So it's, failure all along the line. INEC is not fit for purpose, and a lot of resources has been put into INEC, including by international agencies, the development partners who say they're helping to develop their capacity. It's like money being thrown down into a sinkhole, So that institution, an election management body, has to be trusted by all of us that they're going to deliver an election where integrity is evident, where there's no, and South Africa manages to be able to do it. Even Ghana is doing better than us. So part of this is, we need to understand that this is not, what we're doing is playing fast and loose with our future and our country's potential capacity to be great is being squandered by people who lack integrity. And, if we want to stand for it and say there's nothing we can do, then nothing will change. There's also the whole thing about the cost of loans. I'm glad that Auntie Yemisi Ransom Kuti said that there are some loans, we just don't know about them, so I guess we now need to go and do research and find out where these loans are, inform people on how to get them, and force those people who are looking for bribes not to take majority of the money in bribes so that the money can be devoted to the businesses that need them. But I do know that it is a huge struggle for SMEs, small and medium scale and micro enterprises, to function successfully in Nigeria. And you can see that with the bad economy, some of the multinationals are even leaving Nigeria. And we need to kind of recover ourselves from this. We're on the edge of a cliff. We need to pay attention. And regardless of what is available at EMC, I think there's need for more. That you can't run businesses with these, exorbitant interest rates. It's impossible. then education is a scam. That is the most misguided, idiotic, ignorant kind of thing. And you know, in the US also, there are people, some of them with higher education, or they have gotten their education, and they're now in business as entrepreneurs. They are trying to convince the young people that don't go for higher education, it's a waste of time. After all, Bill Gates did not complete education and all that kind of stuff. I think, like I said before, education is as important as what people think of as national security, securing ourselves from external enemies. Education is as important as that. Because if you don't have a well-educated population, you can't actually run a good democracy, number one. Number two, you are not going to grow and reach your full potential. Now, a lot of the education that people get in school, you might never use, actually, But what education should be about is teach you how to think and how to solve problems, how to understand. I believe there's a guy called, I'm answering Pastor Funke Awolowo now, called Freire, I think is his name. Paulo Freire. He's he was Brazilian. He talked about what is the purpose of education? Education should be the kind of education that enables you to understand your situation, to solve your problems, to take charge of your life. And it seems as if maybe what we are doing here is rote learning. Because, when people start showing me what the Chinese are doing and what the Japanese are doing, what the Indonesians are doing, people go to school and learn the same things. How can those people practicalize and solve problems and we are not able to? I know that in the US, a lot of money goes to research and development, that the government actually puts a lot of, and even places like Harvard get government money to do research and development. And a lot of the things that we use now, like microwave was the product of defense funding, to do outer space exploration. So look, there's a role for government to play, and we need a developmentalist state, a state that considers development as important, that looks at what resources we have, and then what are the hopes and aspirations, and we match these things. So we can't afford to have a tired person. We can't afford to have somebody who was good before and is now struggling. We need young people to be in government.
Absolutely. I agree with you. We need young people.
We also need, so Nigerians in diaspora.
Yes.
A lot of them.
Sonny, you think you qualify as a young person?
Pastor, I'm a young person.
We are young at
You
heart.
you qualify as a young person?
So no burnt out people, you. And then I dare say we also need more women. We need more women. Dr. Olushesi, thank you very much. Multidimensional poverty is a huge problem. We need more businesses. But in order for this to work, when we look at the Asian tigers, they didn't just get to where they got by magic. The government worked with the leading economic sectors to plan and to deliberately say, these are the goals, and then everybody seriously follows it. So let's take ourselves seriously, and let's believe that whatever it is that we plan and work on can succeed. I don't think we do. And I think majority of us just are comfortable now and complacent with mediocrity. We have accepted it. The elites can do much more, that is true. And we need to connect with the grassroots, it's true. But there's a role for government to play. And if we have inept or tired or unserious people there, we're never going to amount to anything.
Thank you very much, Prof. Now, we are going to restructure this thing a bit. We have 7 hands and we have just about 20 minutes to go. I will really, really appeal. Let's keep our questions very short so that we can take everybody down to one minute. That will give us 7 minutes. If you spend another 1 minute answering them, that will give us 14 minutes. And then we are done with what we have to do, please. So I will start. Charles Obi. Charles Obi, yeah, go ahead, sir.
Okay, I'm going to try. Try.
Yeah.
Prof, thanks for your lecture, if you will, or your education, as the case may be. As we all know, the Nigerian democracy is still very, very young, still at its infancy, less than 30 years old. So really, we still have a long runway to go. Now, 2 quick questions I want to ask you. I hear you appealing to Nigerians in diaspora, you're appealing to the young, you're appealing to the women to participate in the process. Now, what happens is a lot of times when some of these people come up and they want to participate in the process, they are told, oh, you're not in the major party, you're not in the major political party, which or indirectly says, because you're not in PDP or APC or now Labour, you cannot contribute, which I think is a whole lot of hogwash. What do you think about that disapproval, if you will, before these people get started, especially the young people, the women, and the Nigerians in diaspora? Number 2, there is this call for the Constitution is faulty. Given what you have, the research you have done, your interaction with the system, what's your position on that? And if it's faulty, what aspects of the Constitution need to change? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Although it took more than a minute. Buki Akinmoladun. Allow Buki to unmute.
She can unmute.
Okay.
Good evening, sir, and good evening, Mas. Good evening, Prof. Thank you very much. My comment or question will be on the main reason why we have refused to develop, despite all the resources, human and material resources that we are endowed with by God. Behind all of this is corruption. I think what we need to do first is to ask, why are we so corrupt? And number 1, how do we get ourselves to ensure that there's consequence for people's actions? Because, I mean, years back, the cost of corruption was about 10%. I mean, you do a business with government, only government people asking for 10% kickback. That was really kickback. Now it is upfront that they even get it. They give you a job, they're asking you to return 90%. And then nobody gets, I mean, we had a lot of EFCC cases and everything, and there's been no consequences for all the actions. So what do we do? How do we get away from there, ensuring that people pay for whatever offenses they commit, whether in the private or in the public sector, because it is everywhere now, and it is very, very annoying. Some of these people are also part of members of our churches or our mosque or whatever, pastors and everything. They're not left behind. So what do we do? How do we ensure that we bring everybody to become accountable?
Okay. Thank you very much. I will let the professor answer, but don't answer as a professor, so that the answers will be very short. Just give one-liner so that we can take the others. Sorry, Professor Grinch, I'll come back to you immediately after this.
Yeah, we have a long democracy.
Yes.
We have a long way to go. If we're saying that the youth and people in diaspora and women should participate, we should not put impediments their way. And the dominance of the major parties is too overwhelming. It's not necessary, and it is not even good for the quality of the kind of deliberative and participatory democracy that we need. So working on this. I think the smaller parties should not get discouraged. That's all I can say in this small time I have. The Constitution, what aspects need to change? Well, okay, I'm just going to talk about the aspects that I find to be compelling, not necessarily what is overwhelmingly good for the country. Why is it that our Constitution does not see women's equal participation important? Our legislators have voted down the gender bills that are supposed to ensure that women have equal rights with men to pass on citizenship, for example, to their spouses, to also have representation, corrective representation in our legislature. Those things have, been kicked out, and we have promises, but no realization of the promises. That needs to change. Then diaspora. We really love it when there's all these remittances coming, but people in diaspora cannot vote except if they come to Nigeria to vote. I think that is an injustice that needs to be corrected. Plus, if we're going to fix our Constitution, doing it in this rushed way, where majority of the people are not participating, is actually wrong and borderline illegitimate. It has to be an inclusive process, a robust process, where we are all able to participate and be taken seriously. This is too elitist a system. There's also, why have we refused the corruption issue? The way that most human societies deal with corruption is to have strong institutions. And we have EFCC, we have, what's the other one? The one for the corporate world. And then we have even a legal system. All of them function suboptimally because also those people can succumb to inducements. They can be bribed, they can be deflected, and all that kind. So, again, this is about us taking seriously our institutions, being committed to ethical and moral behavior that demonstrates that we care about the future of our country. Because the level of corruption that we have, and we are legendary for it all over the world, people know. Plus, I don't think that EFCC and the other institution is enough, because if you notice, the people who steal money in Nigeria, they're successfully prosecuted in the UK, in Europe, in the US, and monies are recovered from them. But we don't have that happening here. So we need, I think, better laws, and then we need a better judiciary to also, and then those institutions, the EFCC and whatever else, it needs to function and be fit for purpose. If we don't take seriously all these things as individuals and as groups, and then a lot of the moral authority that should be exercised by people of God, clergy, they have also squandered those opportunities because there's a lot of corruption all around.
Okay.
So we need all of us
All right.
to
Okay.
dedicate ourselves to repentance and recalibration that says that it is possible to be incorruptible.
All right.
And we have to teach it from childhood and then model that behavior to our young.
I totally agree with you, ma. We've been talking about this for so long, and like Pastor will often ask, who will build the cart? Who will take the first step? Who will organize? Who will bring everybody together? We all seem to know what to do, but somehow we are still wallowing in this. Maybe Professor Grinch can tell us what to do, or she has a question. Go ahead, ma.
Thank you very much, Pastor. First, let me just congratulate my dear sister, Mujiba Olu. I belong to a generation before yours. And because of that, I realized that politically we were very deficient. We paid more attention to specific professions, and that took so much of our time that we were not even interested in politics. So that has its own problem. The second thing is that when people are now talking about who are politically literate, they don't seem to realize that many of us in the past are also politically literate. So we must be carried along. Some of us have chosen to liberate ourselves and to educate ourselves. And that's why I have joined ALG. Now, I'm so happy that you are able to talk with us because I'm one of your followers as being politically literate. I know that, you've written so many books and, I just have to put them among all the books that I am reading. Thank you very much, Professor. Now, two questions. First, the security question. Could we look at the possibility of setting up private security systems? Because you see, everything else that we have been doing, we've always tried to include the option of having private access to. Education is one of them. Healthcare is one of them. But with security, there are no prominent private security outfits. Maybe if we had them, they will be able to compete with the government and outpace them, So that's one. The second thing is INEC. Are we not, for the president to be appointing the head of INEC, is that constitutionally correct? If it is, then we are not practicing democracy, So we need to look at our constitution. The head of INEC should actually be should be elected by the people. What do you think of that? Having said that, I am a protagonist for revamping our educational system with respect to getting everybody to be put together to learn history, social science, anthropology, sociology, all those things that, will not be taught them when they are reading for their own specific professions. So, I believe that this it was tried during my time when I was growing up, but I don't know what happened. It was given up. This needs to come back. Everybody must become literate in your own specialist profession. We must be literate. We cannot compete with you, but we must be literate. So thank you. Just let me finish. Sorry, sir. Let me finish with one other thing. Recently, my sister Yemisi sent us a post of one Mr. Taiwo Oyedele, who is the president, who is managing the Presidential Committee on New National Fiscal Policy. It impressed me so much because he was talking about restructuring the budgetary system in a way to help us make businesses make more profit so that they can pay tax and so they can make bigger businesses and employ more people. So he is trying to address that cycle of profitability, and I think that's the way things should be done. And we should join them. The government, there are times when we should join the government to let them know that they're doing the right thing. Thank you.
All right, man. Thank you. Sorry, man. I will just, because this is the last round. Prof, just don't worry. I will take Abdullahi Bello, Architect Eto, and Olatunde Olasisi. Please, 1 minute, just to throw in your question, because we have to finish now. Just have the opportunity to say something. Please, I'm appealing. And I'm sorry, somebody said I gave him just 1 minute, but I allowed other people to speak for more than a minute. Please, no vex. There are no such intention to either, they favor anyone here. Please, don't be angry. Go ahead. Who is speaking next? Abdullahi Bello. Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, good evening, everyone. So from the conversations so far, my view on this is the foundational issues we're talking about is basically are the people, right? Either we're talking of systems, institutions, or the infrastructure, because as we see, the moral and ethical aspects is basically what the major problem is. So rather than talking about all those other things that we have to build on that foundation, the foundational problem is the moral and ethical aspects of it, right? And
okay.
I believe this can be dealt with. I think I have about 30 seconds more. This can be dealt with holistically, right? From having ethical studies in schools, having compliance programs in both in the corporate world and then also in government institutions, having the media basically promoting ethics, right? The religious institutions teaching ethical aspects of religion, because in the Bible, we see even the epistles is more than 50% or 50% is for ethics. In the Quran, over 80% is talking about the moral aspects of religion. But we don't see that. So it has to be a holistic approach. It's a highly religious society, both the pastors, the government, and lastly, the government has to be willing to be able to drive this agenda for a while, to be able to reorientate the people.
Okay.
Without that, all of the other things we're talking about wouldn't work.
All right. Thank you. Great. Architect Eto, sorry. Thank you very much for your contribution, Abdullahi.
Yes, sir. Please, I'm watching you. Once it's a minute, raise your hand and I will stop immediately. I assure you of that. Once a minute, raise your hand and I will stop. I'm watching you.
Okay.
I say this because I could actually speak for 1 hour for obvious reasons. And so many things I find extremely important that have been said today. And I want to thank the speakers for everything. You see, the youth participation in politics. Politics is a game of numbers, and the youths have the numbers. Women inclusion, women have the numbers, and politics is a game of numbers. Why don't the youth use their numbers? Why don't the women use their numbers? We can start from today till tomorrow and castigate them and say all sorts of things, but there's a major problem of ignorance, real honest ignorance. So I think that aside from programs like this, if we can actually come together to have programs of enlightening the young people about their future, about what politics is, and the fact that it is in their larger enlightening interest on the long run for them to do this, I believe that Nigerian youths will be able to change. I always say something, and please, I mean no offense to anybody. On the day of election, the young people collect 2,000 naira because of poverty. But that same young person, tell him that you want to sleep with his girlfriend that he wants to marry, and you want to pay him 50,000 naira. He will tell you, God punish you. Perish with your money. Is he no longer hungry? It's about enlightenment to understand they don't see value in politics and election day. I think that's my real issue, is how do we get to drill down and enlighten the youth of how important politics is. Thank you. I've been watching your hand. It hasn't gone up.
I lifted it up. Thank you very much. Okay, all right. Olatunde Olusesi, sorry you were cut off the last time, but just quickly put in a comment.
Absolutely. Yeah. I just want us to consider social entrepreneurship as a way to address multidimensional poverty in Nigeria. I am not talking theory. I do it. This is not theory. I do this, and I think that is the way to go. I mean, unfortunately, we don't have time, right?
Yeah,
But I will have shown you what I have been doing, not just as the urban, in urban centers, but also in rural areas. And the truth of the matter is that a lot of the problems that we are talking about can be addressed if our people are not hungry. I can tell you that based on the programs I'm doing, the template I have, there is no one in my program that can be given 2,000 naira to vote for anybody. They don't have time for that because I've engaged them. It took a lot of work, but it can be done.
All right, excellent, Prof. We will engage you. Our VP2 will get in touch with you. We can see how we work together and that program. So, Prof, go ahead now and
yes,
take the questions plus your wrap up.
Grange.
Yeah.
Professor Grange, thank you very much. Actually, this matter of political illiteracy, I don't think any generation is immune from it. And actually, young people can also be quite illiterate. They might know and care more about Big Brother than politics. But I think, thinking about that and wanting to criticize the young people but for being too focused on Big Brother, I think what it is that they trust Big Brother. They trust the process. Big Brother has rules, and the rules are followed, and it leads to results that are transparent, hopefully. I've never watched. Maybe that's why they're watching it more than they are paying attention to politics. So we need to correct this, and it's correctable. I think having civic education from school, from the primary to all levels of school, having it by organizations, including religious institutions that have an interest in ensuring that we improve the quality of our democracy is important. And yes, it's also useful for us to have interdisciplinary knowledge. I think that's one thing that the Americans do very well, because if you are in the arts, you still have to take some sciences and social sciences and so forth, so that you are a well-rounded person. But even there, there's a lot of voter apathy. So you can't, and then I think we should all know that there's what people have characterized as democratic backsliding happening all over the world. So the essence of what we need to do is that we can't afford to relax if we're practicing democracy, because at any moment, powerful actors can snatch the process and distort it to their own advantage. We also, INEC, should the president appoint the head of INEC? Well, so like I said before, Prof, I think the president can appoint, but the job of grilling that person and ensuring the fact that the president appoints the person doesn't mean they should be confirmed. If they're not a good person for the job, they shouldn't be confirmed. And then it's back to the drawing board. But to think that just because the president appoints, the legislature should be a rubber stamp is the problem. Like I said, they don't do their work well. And the president, too, is looking for somebody to be a crony. So, if the president is looking for a crony, but the other institutions that should check and balance against that work well, then we won't have the situation that we have. Should we elect the head of INEC? Well, I don't know. I think the people we are electing, are they working well? Do we have hope that if we elect this person, they're going to work for us? I'm not sure, because that needs something from that person that says, I'm going to be ethical, I'm going to do my work, and I'm going to be incorruptible. And so far, it seems like we are not there yet as Nigerians. We need to get there very fast. We should revamp the educational system, no doubt about it. I like what I hear about the restructuring of the budget system. I think, more information should be provided so that people can benefit from the opportunities that are offered. So we need more serious people like this Taiwo Oyedele. And when we see them, we should also support them so that they don't get tired and give up, Abdullah Bello, we have foundational issues. I agree. And moral and ethical questions can be, I agree with you totally, that we need all around holistic dedication to this matter of re-infusing all our systems, all our practices and processes with moral and ethical fiber, because it's a huge missing factor. Architect Inya Eto, youth participation in politics. Yes, women and youth, we have the numbers. Why are we not organized? You know what? It is not, it's not like the men and the old and decrepit people who are holding on to power. They're not just sitting there saying that it should be a fair competition. A lot is done to subvert. But then that being said, you know, the people who are being disadvantaged, it's incumbent on them to organize. And, you know, if you lost an election, I'm sure the more skilled people like my sister Okunawo, you know that the day after the election is when you start mobilizing and organizing for the next one. So we can't afford to give up. There's more need to organize. Also, some of the rules have to be changed in order to create an equitable situation. And that's part of what those gender bills were trying to do for women. And then, you know, I liked the not too young to run movement. I hope they haven't gotten tired, because there's still a lot of work to do. Dr. Olushesi, I think, yes, we need more social entrepreneurship. And I'm aware of some of the things you are doing. So, you know, such efforts should be publicized. And, you know, you should mentor other people so that, you know, we have more people doing. But really, we should do all these good things as private individuals, associations, civil society, but there's a role for government to play in a situation like ours where we are not developed and our democracy is very young and poverty is killing us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof. I'm not sure. I'm not sure Pastor is in the house now. We have effectively come to the end of the program, and I think is Pastor back in?
Private security.
Okay, sorry, who is talking about bread?
So the private security versus to compete with government security. Yes, we need private security, but you know, the security that government should provide, it cannot be replaced by private security. I think the private security can help us to secure our houses. But if you can't afford private security, then should you be at the mercy of the bandits and the terrorists, you know? So there's a role for government to play, and that role cannot be played by anybody else but government. It's huge, it's important, and it is imperative. And if a government can't play that role, then we have a failed state. But yes, private security is important. Like I have a security system in my place in the US. I can see, you know, if somebody goes to my door, I can see them. I can turn on my alarm, turn it off, you know, from here or anywhere else in the world, as long as I'm connected to the internet. You know, yeah. So that is important, but there's a role for government. We have a total breakdown, and that's not acceptable.
Okay, Prof, you have done excellently well. I'm not sure Pastor is back in the house, but just before we close, I think Jumoke Akintaylor would like to appreciate those on the platform and generally tell them more a bit, if this is your first time, what we do at ALG and how you can be a part of what we are doing. Jumoke, are you ready?
Yes, I'm here. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us again. Thank you, Professor. So good to have you here. And thank you for really engaging and with all the points that you have put forward. So this is really a call to action, and I think that's part of what you're doing with us here today is a call to action for us to be the change agents, the ones that we advocate for rebuilding Nigeria. And so I just want to put it out there. I think we had mentioned to you that we have a School of Leadership here, and part of what that School of Leadership does is we have a Citizens Responsibility course that we've been offering. And we had our second, we graduated our second cohort, I believe it was back in May. And we want to continue to expand that. We believe that that is one of the ways to really get people more engaged in not just in voting rights, but in also holding our leaders accountable and ensuring that we have responsible, ethical, and accountable leaders. So there's a call to action here for you to engage more with ALG. Then we also have, you talked about mentorship program. We have mentorship program, and I want to thank everyone that has been involved in that mentorship program. Someone like Professor Grange, who is still helping just pour out into our youth. That mentorship program and the second cohort will be coming up in September. So we invite everyone to please just join this effort. We say that here all the time. Collaboration is the way. And in your presentation, you had mentioned the need for us to get together and come as a unit, not as individuals. And Tri-Africa Empowerment Foundation, Africa Leadership Group, we really believe in collaboration. So we're looking to collaborate with as many organizations that are like-minded, that align with the vision and the mission of the organization, which is really promoting good governance and bringing, engaging the citizens in building our nation, not just Nigeria, but the African continent as a whole. So we invite you to please join us. And our youth, and I must really commend Yetunde Macaulay, who is the coordinator of our youth group, for the tremendous work that they are doing. We are engaging the youths, we're building them, getting them to understand that they have a role to play in advancing the nation. So we're looking for those that would come support this youth and just empower them and inspire them to really take this on as they continue to put their efforts into rebuilding Nigeria. And I use the word rebuilding because that's really what it is. That's what we are going to continue to do. So there is a form in the chat room. Please fill that form. We would engage you. We have a lot of volunteers, and then we would continue to grow. And if there are information or resources that you believe we can help with, send that our way. And if we can, we definitely will. But again, like I said, we're looking to collaborate on the Citizens Responsibility Campaign, which is in form of a course and also a campaign. We have the Itwa Olajide Godalo real mentorship program, and then real means responsible, ethical, and accountable leadership. So that's a mentorship program that, again, the second cohort will be coming up in September. So sign up if you are a real leader, and if you believe that you can pour into the next generation to become these great leaders that the country needs. So thank you. And then the information about this weekly program is every Thursday, 5 p.m., same time, same Zoom link. We're here at 5 p.m., just different topics. And also, if you have contact of people that you believe have are experts in fields that you would like for us to consider, send that information our way as well. So thank you again, everyone, for joining. Thank you to all those that continue to support what we do here at Tri-Africa, whether as a volunteer, whether with your money, with your time. We really appreciate you, and we look forward to the continued engagement as we continue to move Nigeria forward. Thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you very much. Prof, any final word that you would like to leave us with? Just
thank you very much.
Okay.
I would join when my schedule permits.
Okay, that's
And
good.
I had a really good time. I thank everybody who asked questions. I also think that this is an excellent initiative, and everybody should endeavor to join because we need all hands on deck.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And we want to thank everybody, like Jumoke have said, on behalf of Pastor Ito Ighodalo, the president and convener of ALG. I appreciate you all. Enjoy the rest of your week and see you again next week, same time, same channel. The same Zoom link doesn't change. We're looking at bringing an expert who will discuss the cost of corruption in Nigeria, what corruption is costing us. Hopefully, we want to talk about that, and we'll lay it bare and see how it goes. So please make sure you don't miss the next week or the next week after that. Thank you very much. Have a good evening. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Prof. We'll be in touch with you. Thank you.
Yes, bye-bye.
Thank you, Prof. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you,
Bye.
I
Have a
hope
good
I'll
night.
see you before you go back. This is
Yes.
Auntie Emily. Make sure you
Yeah.
get in touch.
I will.
Wonderful lecture, as
Thank
usual.
you very much.
We
Thank you.
expected no less. Well done. Well done.
Thank you,
Thank you, everybody,
Marcella.
Jumoke.
Thank you.
It's
Auntie,
been a
we
long
need to be
time.
in
I've
touch
not
with
seen you
this
for a while. Where have you
collaboration
been?
you're talking about.
Yes,
You're
yes,
muted.
yes,
I can't
yes.
hear you.
Hello, how are you?
Okay. All